that's red. She's got the spices, smile so bright. Cooking with Judith right by my side. By my side. Chop, chop, sizzle, frying pan heat. From pancakes to a fancy feast. Cooking with Judith, fun to say the least. The least.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith, and today I'm going to do a very traditional stuffed chicken. I know I do a lot of slightly exotic foods, I guess, but I do love a really nice roast chicken. So first thing we have to do is start our stuffing. So for that I have white bread. Yes, I prefer white bread. You could use whole wheat if you like. And you don't really have to make it stale, but if you want to leave it out overnight so it gets a little bit stiff, it is a little bit easier to cut, especially if you're using a really soft white bread. Then you want some onion, doesn't matter, red, white, yellow, and some celery. And of course for seasoning, sage, poultry seasoning, seasoned salt, and maybe just a little plain salt. And if you want to put pepper in it, that's up to you. I don't. But one thing I will do is I am going to stuff the chicken. I know these days we're being told to cook our stuffing outside of the chicken, not to put it inside the chicken because of salmonella. Well, that will only be an issue if you don't properly cook your chicken. And I think stuffing tastes far better if it is cooked inside the chicken. So let's get started with the stuffing. So just a hint, when cutting your celery, depending on how big your stalks of celery are, and this one is pretty big, it was like so, but I cut it down in half, and then if the bottom is a lot wider, I cut that in half, just up to where it starts to thin out. And then we're just going to chop it so you end up with a nice dice, fairly even size. Okay, you want to just cube your bread up, either cut it or tear it. And I've got about 5 slices of just white bread. And they're fairly large cubes, but if you want them smaller, go ahead. It's up to you. And then I have about a little more than a cup of celery and about a cup of red onion, because that's all I happen to have today. And as I said, sage, poultry seasoning, and seasoned salt. So I'm going to warm up my pan, get some butter and oil in it, and then we will saute our vegetables. While our vegetables are sauteing, I'm going to add the seasoning to our bread. So, generous amount of all 3, but go easy on the salt to start with. And I usually put in about a teaspoon, a heaping teaspoon of sage and a little more of poultry seasoning. And then we mix it together. Just toss it with your hands. And I always give it a sniff test to see if I have enough seasoning in it. Smelling a bit light on the poultry seasoning. Just going to add a little more. And yes, it will fall to the bottom of the bowl, so don't get too carried away. And the only way I can tell if there's enough salt is to taste a piece. I think we're good there. Now, once you've got your butter melted and mixed with the oil, it's on a low heat because we're not browning anything, we're going to add our red onion, or white or yellow, whatever you got. That's, as I said, about a cup. A little more than a cup, maybe closer to a cup and a half of celery. Toss these to coat with the butter. And these are fairly rough to chop. You don't want them chopped too fine or they'll disappear in the dressing. Now we're just going to let those cook there until they get translucent and soft. Okay, and I'm smelling the onions and the celery. So, as you can see, they are starting to brown a little, so we're going to turn the heat off. We're going to actually take them right off the heat and let them cool. And while our vegetables are cooling to go into our seasoned bread, we are going to wash and prepare our lovely little chicken, which means removing excess fats. And if there's kidneys in there, they have once you've washed your chicken and patted it dry. Don't really have to worry too much about the inside. Get it ready for stuffing. Now this one does not have a flap of skin at the neck. They've cut that off. But the wings have been folded back the way I like them. So we're just going to get you dried up. And put you aside. And of course get your roaster pan ready. I always have a pan with a rack in the bottom. Just makes it easier so the chicken doesn't stick to the bottom. And we have our lovely bread. And especially if you left your bread out to get stale, you might want to add some more moisture to it. So your options are an egg, which is what I usually use, or an apple if you happen to have a beat up one in the fridge or in your fruit basket. And I think I'm going to do the apple today because I haven't done that for a while. So we're just going to cut this lovely little apple into smallish chunks and peel it.
Meeting in the kitchen, fun ahead. Judith with her apron, wine that's red. She's got the spices, smiles so bright. Cooking with Judith right by my side.
In with the bread. And then we can add our onion and celery. Now, onion and celery is not 100% cool. So you might want to use a spoon rather than your hands to mix this. So we give it a good stir. Toss it all together. And I know someone, at least she used to do this, dry her bread out completely and then soak it in milk to rehydrate it. I didn't figure out the logic behind that, but yes, it's the way she was taught to do it, and that's the way she did it. There we go. Okay, we're ready to stuff a chicken. So we have our lovely little chicken. And as I said, there's no place at the neck end to put any in. So we have a limited amount of space. And I'm going to separate the skin from the bottom of the breast here and the thigh. That'll give us another little receptacle, or two actually, to put stuffing in. There we go. Okay. And make sure you have a way to secure the cavity. So I have in my drawer here some picks, and I'm just going to get some string. Now while you're stuffing your chicken, preheat your oven to 350. You could actually do it at 325 if you want. It's not that much different. And actually that was the temperature I was always taught to roast meat at. But these days, for some reason, it's now 350. I should maybe see if I can figure out why it has changed. Because that's quite the difference. Well, actually, it's not a big difference. Okay, and make sure that space is available. And I do stuff fairly tightly so that when it does come out of the chicken, it's a pretty solid mass. If you don't want to stuff that tightly and you find you have an excess amount of stuffing, you could do some in a dish. I know my mom always had extra stuffing and had to do some separately. And she usually just wrapped it in tin foil and put it in the oven. But if I'm cooking it separately from the chicken, I put it in a casserole and I pour some chicken stock over it. Otherwise I find it comes out way too dry and without quite the same flavor. At least if you had some chicken stock, you get a bit more chickeny flavor. Okay, I think we might be, well, I do have room to put a little bit more in, but I don't have that much stuffing left. More than will go in there, I think, but not, it's going to end up as not enough to put in a dish. Oh well, let's see what we end up with. My little chicken's going to be very chubby. Now also, when you're trying to figure out how long to roast your chicken, remember that a stuffed chicken does take longer than a non-stuffed chicken. So for this chicken, which is about 3.5 pounds, unstuffed would take about 2 hours, maybe a little less, maybe a little more depending on your oven. Stuffed, it's going to take 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay, I think that's all we're getting in there. So now we gotta try and close up our hole. Which I'm going to do with the spike, and hopefully it doesn't tear right through. Please don't tear right through. Unfortunately, if you have a thin-skinned chicken, you run the risk of just opening up holes. There we go. And this is where the string, butcher's twine, comes in. A chunk of that. And we are going to put it, you see right there, under the Pope's nose. We're going to wrap one piece around that leg, and that piece around that leg, and we're going to pull them together. And tie them as tight as we can. Oops. Okay, when I try to tie the knot, it wants to come apart. This is why my father always said, put your finger here. And then tried to tie our finger into it. Okay. So one more round on that leg. And see if we can't pull it tighter. There we go. So I think a slip knot would work. Okay, that's as tight as we're going to get it, but that's fine. And I really don't have a whole lot of dressing left, so I could put it in a little dish. I do have a little dish I could put it in. I'm going to take our chicken, put him in the roasting pan, and one final touch, because we want him to come up nice and brown. Actually, I'm calling the chicken a him, but technically chickens are she's. So we're just going to rub just a little olive oil over the skin. And not a whole lot, just about a half a teaspoon. You should be able to spread it over the whole chicken. There we go. One thing about stuffing your chicken with your stuffing is the thin parts where you have put the stuffing in by the legs and on the neck part, if you do it on the neck as well, will brown really quickly. So to prevent it from burning and getting the stuffing too dry, put a little piece of tin foil, I think that's too large, just over the spot that is browning too quickly. And put it over the ends of the legs as well to prevent them from burning, if you like. So now we've got that covered. Back into the oven it goes. So how do you tell if your chicken is done? Let me pull our foil off of there. Now, if it wasn't stuffed, I would be poking it right there in the thigh. Since it is stuffed and I can't poke it there, we're going underneath. And in the thick part of the breast. We want to see the juices run clear. We don't want to see any blood. Actually looking like it's done a little sooner than I had anticipated, but that's good. So we don't put too many holes in it. We just want to see if it's actually cooked. And it's not running anything pink. I'm gonna call it done. So here we have roast chicken dinner. And I know a lot of people don't have huge families coming for Thanksgiving or Christmas these days. So this is a good substitute for a big turkey dinner. A lovely little chicken. Let me get my favorite piece of stuffing, the bit with the lovely crunchy skin on it. Although I do like the soft stuffing. And some broccoli. And we spent all that time making lovely gravy. I do like gravy on my stuffing. Normally I would insist on lovely mashed potatoes, but my waistline really doesn't need mashed potatoes, and I love gravy on my vegetables, so yippee. So let's pour a nice glass of wine to go with. And I know I didn't use the wine in the cooking, but for a holiday dinner. Okay, let's have a taste. And we'll try the breast first because the breast is often dry and not very pleasant. Oh, that is so moist. Stuffing time. And this, except for the addition of the apple, is my mother's stuffing recipe. She never added apples. You don't even actually taste the apple. It is so moist and so soft. Okay, let's have a bit of the dark meat. Some of the drumstick. Oh, that's heaven. This is a dinner pretty much everyone will love. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you some ideas for a stuffed chicken or turkey, because you can use the same stuffing for your turkey. It's not mandatory that it be chicken. Please, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon and you'll get notified when I put up another video, which I do every Sunday. Well, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon with a new video. And I am going to enjoy this dinner.